Her stepbrother set her room on fire, but you won't believe what happened next. Inzari, a quiet girl with dreams, was left with nothing but ashes. What seemed like the end turned into the beginning of an extraordinary journey, one that would change everything. Stay tuned to discover her unimaginable rise. In the bright and busy village of Tobain, there lived a quiet girl named Inzari. She didn't talk much, but her hands spoke through fabric. She took old clothes, scraps, and broken buttons, and turned them into beautiful dresses with her own small sewing kit. Her dream was simple: to study design in the city and create clothes the world would wear. But dreams like hers didn't grow easily in homes like hers. Inzari's life changed after her mother, Madisa, died suddenly from illness when Inzari was just 10. Her father, Barumo, remarried a year later. His new wife, Zanira, moved into their home, bringing her teenage son, Dako. From the moment Dako arrived, peace left Inzari's world. He walked in like he owned everything and made sure Inzari knew she didn't belong. He teased her for sewing trash clothes, laughed when she sat alone with her sketchbook, and tore her favorite designs when no one was looking. Inzari would find her fabric thrown in the dirt, her needles missing, or worse, her finished work hidden or ripped apart. Whenever she told her father, he said, "Just ignore him. He's your brother now." But Dako never acted like a brother. He acted like an enemy who lived in her own house. Zanira never corrected him. If anything, she encouraged it. She once caught Inzari crying after Dako destroyed her best dress and coldly said, "Maybe stop dreaming like you're better than this village." That sentence stayed with Inzari like a stain she couldn't scrub off. But she never argued. She stitched in silence, turning every tear into thread. She kept designing, even when she had to hide her work under her mattress or draw on the back of old calendars. Despite the cruelty, Inzari never lost her calm. She moved like quiet rain, gentle but steady. At school, she stayed away from drama. At home, she kept her head low. But in her heart, she held on to one promise. One day, I'll leave this place. I'll create something that no one can tear down. She didn't have fancy tools, just a needle, some thread, and a notebook she covered in brown paper to keep Dako from finding it. She drew every night after chores, often by candlelight. Her designs were bold, colourful skirts, royal-looking gowns, jackets with wild patterns that no one in Tobain had ever seen. But even with all this pain, she stayed kind. She helped Zanira with cooking. She fetched water. She never shouted at Dako, even when he ruined things again and again. The neighbours often said, "That girl has a strange strength. She never breaks." But they didn't know. Inzari was already broken. She just learned how to build quietly, piece by piece, using thread instead of tears. And while Dako laughed and Zanira sneered, Inzari was planning, not with words, but with designs. She knew her escape wouldn't be loud. It would be stitched carefully, day by day, until the whole world would see her name and remember the girl who rose without a single scream. When Inzari turned 17, life finally offered her a way out. She had entered a regional fashion contest in the distant city of Lamira, secretly sending in her designs weeks before. She didn't expect much, but when the acceptance letter arrived, she held it in her trembling hands, staring at the bold black letters. "You've been selected." Her heart danced. It was her chance to leave Tobani, to leave the shadows of Dako and Zanira, and show the world what her hands could create. She couldn't hide her excitement. Even though she tried to stay calm, Dako noticed the glow on her face, the sudden sparkle in her eyes. She caught him staring at her more than once that day, his jaw clenched, eyes full of something dark. She didn't say a word, didn't show him the letter, but he knew. He could feel it. For years, he made her feel small. Now she was standing taller, and it made his blood boil. That night, as silence covered the village and the wind rustled gently through the cracked windows, Dako moved through the shadows like a ghost. He pushed open the creaky door to Inzari's small room. Her sketches were laid out carefully, her competition dress hanging near the corner, half finished, but already stunning. Fabric with rich colours, beads she had saved up for years, and a neckline she had spent weeks perfecting. To Dako, it was a symbol of everything he hated: her quiet rise, her soft defiance, her refusal to break. He didn't think twice. He took the oil lamp from the hallway, poured it all over the fabric, the dress, the notebooks. He watched as the oil soaked through her dreams, and then, with a single match, he set it all on fire. The flames rose fast, the fabric caught quickly, and smoke filled the tiny room. Inzari woke up coughing, her eyes burning, the air too thick to breathe. For a second, she didn't understand. Then she saw the fire clawing up the wall, devouring her work. She screamed. Her door wouldn't open. It had been tied shut. She pounded, kicked, coughed. The smoke was swallowing her whole. Neighbors heard the screams. Someone broke down the door. A blanket was thrown over her. Arms pulled her out. Inzari collapsed outside, barely conscious. Her hands were burned. Her clothes were singed. But she was alive. People shouted. Water was thrown. But it was too late. Her room was gone. Her dress, her sketches, her tools, ashes. When Inzari opened her eyes at dawn, her first words were, "My dress, my designs." She tried to crawl back inside, but they held her. Tears streamed down her face, not because of the pain, but because her future had burned before her eyes. No one saw Dako smile in the shadows. No one knew the fire wasn't an accident. But that night, something else was born in Inzari, something stronger than fear, deeper than pain. She hadn't just survived the fire, she had risen from it. Inzari lay on a straw mat in silence, bandages wrapped around her scorched arms. Her body ached, but her heart hurt more. The smell of smoke still clung to her skin. Her father, Barumo, stood over her with anger in his voice instead of comfort. "How could you be so careless?" he shouted. "You could have burned the whole house." His words hit harder than the fire itself. He didn't ask if she was okay. He didn't want to hear her side. He only saw the wreckage and blamed her. Zanira sobbed beside him, holding a cloth to her face, but there were no real tears in her eyes. "We're lucky she didn't kill us in our sleep," she said dramatically, casting a glance at Inzari like she was some danger to them all. Dako stood in the background, arms crossed, nodding solemnly. He kept his mouth shut, but his eyes gave him away, cold, triumphant. The villagers came the next morning. They stood at the fence, whispering among themselves. "She must have knocked over a lantern," one said. "Why was she working so late?" Another murmured. No one asked Inzari what really happened. No one wondered why the door had been tied shut. People believed what they wanted to believe, and no one wanted to believe a boy like Dako could do such a thing. Inzari sat quietly on the porch, listening to them. She didn't argue. What was the point? Her designs were gone. Her entry was gone. Her future, stolen in one night. All that was left were the burns on her skin and the silence in her heart. Barumo didn't let her stay long. A few days later, he told her to pack what little she had left. "You need discipline," he said. "You're too distracted here. Maybe some hard work will fix that." He didn't even look her in the eye. He had already decided she was a burden. She was sent to the outskirts of Taban to live with old Maleka, her late mother's cousin, a woman no one really visited. Maleka lived alone in a crumbling mud house at the edge of the maize fields. She was quiet, stern, and didn't say much when Inzari arrived, just pointed to a small room with a mat and said, "You sleep there. Water's from the well." Inzari moved like a ghost those first days. She fetched water, cleaned the house, helped in the garden. Her hands, still healing, throbbed with every movement, but she didn't complain. She couldn't afford to. Maleka watched her closely, testing her with silence. At night, Inzari would sit under the old tree in the yard, staring at the stars. She thought about what the fire had taken, her sketches, her passion, her voice. But deep down, the flame that had nearly killed her hadn't gone out. It was still there, flickering quietly inside her, hidden beneath the ashes of her innocence. She wasn't done. Not yet. Inzari walked through the narrow paths of Tobane with a basket on her back, filled with charcoal she gathered from the forest edge. Her hands were always black with soot, her fingernails stained deep from days of scraping burnt wood. People stared when she passed. Mothers pulled their children close. Vendors whispered behind her. Some turned away, others shook their heads. They all believed the same lies, that she was cursed, that she brought bad luck, that fire followed her wherever she went. The rumors grew louder with time. "She's not right in the head," one woman muttered. "Didn't she try to burn her own house?" Someone else added. Dako's lies had taken root. He told everyone Inzari was obsessed with flames, that she used to sketch fires in her notebooks, that she once said she'd burn down the market if people didn't respect her design. He acted concerned when telling the stories, playing the part of a worried stepbrother. "She needs help," he said. "We tried everything." No one came to ask Inzari if it was true. No one asked how she got the burns. Even the local herbalist refused to sell her healing balm, claiming, "I don't want trouble in my home." Inzari didn't argue. She had learned that silence was sometimes safer than truth. But inside her, the truth burned hotter than ever. She had seen Dako's face in the glow of the flames. She remembered how calm he looked, how steady his hands were when he poured the oil. Her father avoided her completely. When she passed by their house once to deliver some cornmeal for old Maleka, Barumo stepped back like she carried disease. "Don't bring that energy here," he snapped, slamming the door in her face. Not once did he ask how she was managing. Not once did he visit. Inzari's days were long and heavy. She woke before sunrise, walked miles into the forest, gathered wood, burned it into charcoal, and carried it to the market. She made barely enough to buy a loaf of bread and a bit of salt. Still, she didn't stop. Each piece of charcoal reminded her of her dream, of fabric, color, and design, of what the fire took and what she would take back. Some nights, she would sit alone outside Maleka's house, sketching on scraps of paper with charcoal sticks. The shapes were rough, but the vision was clear. Her fingers, though scarred, still moved with purpose. Each design she drew was a rebellion against the lies, against the shame, against the pain. The village saw a broken girl, but they didn't see the fire still inside her, the one no one could put out. Not even Dako. The rain came down hard that morning, soaking the dusty roads and turning the village paths to thick, sticky mud. Inzari pulled her shawl tighter, struggling to keep the charcoal basket balanced on her head. As she neared the market, she noticed a wooden cart stuck in the mud, its wheels sunken deep. An old man stood beside it, drenched, trying to lift it alone. Without a word, Inzari dropped her basket and hurried to help. Together, they pushed and pulled until the cart budged free. The old man looked at her, surprised by her strength. Then his eyes fell to her hands, darkened with soot, scarred by flames. He didn't ask about the burns, but something in his face softened. "You didn't have to help," he said, shaking water from his sleeves. "Not many do." Inzari gave a small smile. "You needed help." He nodded slowly. "What's your name?" "Inzari." He paused. "I'm Tamru Bok. I own a tailoring shop in Limera." He studied her closely, as if seeing something others had missed. "You're no ordinary girl. I can see it in your eyes." She looked down, unsure how to respond. "I need an extra hand at the shop," he continued. "Someone patient, someone who listens, someone like you." He pulled a card from his pocket, pressed it into her hand. "Think about it. If you're ready to leave this place, come." Inzari stood still in the rain, her heart thudding. No one had ever offered her a way out, not like this. That night, she told old Maleka about the meeting. Maleka said nothing for a while, then gave her a small sack of ground nuts, a torn scarf, and a blessing. "Go, child. You don't belong to this dirt." By sunrise, Inzari was gone. No goodbyes, no explanations. She walked the road to Limera with nothing but a small bundle and a mind full of questions. The sky was still grey, the wind cold, but she felt lighter. For the first time in years, she wasn't walking towards survival. She was walking towards something new. Tamru welcomed her like family. His shop was small but filled with colour, silks, threads, beads, fabrics from all corners of the land. His wife, Amma, was stern but kind. She showed Inzari how to press, how to stitch, how to measure. Every evening, Inzari practiced with scraps, slowly rebuilding her dream from pieces. No one in Limera knew her past. No one whispered behind her back. She was just the quiet girl at Tamru's shop, quick with her hands and quiet with her thoughts. The fire had taken everything, but in this new place, among thread and fabric, something began to return. A spark not even Dako could destroy. Limera overwhelmed Inzari at first. The streets buzzed with people, voices, music, and smoke from food stalls. Colours flashed everywhere. Carts rolled by with loud wheels, and tall buildings cast long shadows. But through all the noise, Inzari stayed focused. In the quiet back room of the house of Tamru, she worked with steady hands and eyes that missed nothing. She watched, she listened, and she learned. Every evening, after the shop closed, she stayed back to practice. She stitched until her fingers ached, experimented with dyes, mixed patterns no one dared try before. Her silence was not weakness. It was the sound of something growing. While others chatted and laughed, Inzari let her work speak. Her designs told stories, stories of survival, of heat, of silence and strength. She began with simple tunics, adding tiny flames stitched into the hems. Then came bold skirts, dyed in burnt orange and deep grey, colours of fire and ash. Customers noticed. They asked who made them. Tamru smiled and pointed to the girl with the scars. Within a year, Tamru's wife Amma, who rarely praised anyone, handed Inzari the lead for the new seasonal line. "Let's see what your hands can say now," she said. Inzari poured her soul into a dress she called Ash Reborn. The fabric started in dark, smoky grey at the shoulders, like smouldering coal, then turned into a deep, fierce crimson that spread across the lower half like dancing flames. Tiny black feathers curled upward along the waist and chest, rising like smoke from a fire that refused to die. At the center of the chest, she stitched a single golden thread, thin and bright, representing a spark that never went out. When the dress was revealed at the Lamara Design Showcase, the crowd gasped. People asked who the designer was. When Tamru said her name, silence followed. Then, applause. Loud, long, unstoppable applause. Soon, magazines featured her. Fashion houses called. Rich women from the capital wanted dresses made by the quiet girl with fire in her hands. But Inzari didn't rush. She stayed loyal to Tamru and Amma, working harder than ever. She sent small parcels back to old Maleka, warm shawls, sugar, soap, and handwritten notes. And yet, through all her rising fame, she never spoke of Toban, never mentioned Dako. But every night she looked at her burned hands and remembered, not in pain, but in power. Those hands had survived fire, and now they created beauty. In the heart of Lamira, Inzari, once called cursed, once sent away in shame, became a name people whispered with respect. Her silence no longer hid her. It carried her. It burned quietly, just like her dress, like the ashes she rose from. 2 years had passed since Inzari left Tobane. Her name was now known across Lamira. Clients came from all corners of the city, all wanting to wear her creations. But one afternoon, while sorting fabric swatches in her studio, she heard a familiar voice. "Inzari?" It was Lumi, her old classmate from Tobane, now thinner, older, eyes filled with something between fear and urgency. Lumi didn't waste time. She reached into her worn bag and pulled out a small envelope. It was singed at the corners, the paper brittle and stained. "I found this behind the water tank near your father's hut. I think you need to see it." Inzari opened the letter slowly. The handwriting was rough, but the words hit like lightning. It was from Dako, written to one of his old friends. He boasted about what he did. She thought she was special, sewing like a queen. But I showed her. I finally burned her out of that house. Now she knows who's in charge. Inzari stared at the paper. Her fingers didn't shake. Her eyes didn't tear up. She just folded it back neatly, placed it on the table, and looked up at Lumi. "Thank you," she said quietly. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat by the window, looking out at the city lights, the memory of the fire still glowing in her mind. All those years, the pain, the shame, the silence. She had carried the blame. Everyone believed she'd caused the fire. Even her own father had turned away. But now, the truth had finally come out of the ashes, black on white, in Dako's own words. The next morning, she walked into her lawyer's office with the letter. "I want justice," she said calmly. Her lawyer, a sharp woman named Mary, read the letter twice. Then she looked up. "We'll get it," she replied. Within days, Mary filed a case. The news spread quickly. Headlines read, "Famous designer accuses. Stepbrother of arson after 2 years of silence." The letter was shared online. People were shocked. How could someone burn his own sister's dreams? How had she stayed silent for so long? Inzari didn't respond to interviews. She didn't post on social media. She let the truth speak for itself. Meanwhile, back in Tobane, panic set in. Dako tried to deny it, but the handwriting matched. Witnesses started to come forward. Villagers who had overheard bits and pieces years ago but were too afraid to speak. Now, they wanted to be on the right side of history. Inzari stayed calm through it all. Her designs never stopped. Her shop stayed open. But her silence this time wasn't weakness. It was a storm waiting for its moment. She had no interest in revenge. She wanted the truth. And now, it was out in the open, glowing like fire in the dark, unstoppable and clear. Inzari stepped out of the car like a flame in the wind, bold, graceful, and untouchable. Her dress shimmered in gold and crimson, the colors of fire and rebirth. The sleek black car she rode in had Ash Reborn painted in fine gold letters on the side. The village of Tobani stood still as she passed, whispering her name with a mix of awe and regret. The same villagers who once called her cursed now couldn't meet her eyes. The courthouse was packed. Everyone in Toban had come to witness the trial. Dako sat in the defendant's chair, his face pale, hands shaking. He had changed. No longer smug, no longer proud, just a shadow of the boy who once lit a fire to destroy someone's dreams. The judge entered. The courtroom rose. The trial began. The letter Lumi found was presented. A handwriting expert confirmed Dako had written it. Then witnesses came forward. Neighbors who had heard strange things that night. People who remembered seeing Dako near the house with a small can of oil. One by one, the puzzle came together. Dako tried to deny it at first. He claimed it was a joke, that he never meant real harm. But the pressure mounted. His lies crumbled. Under the weight of truth, he finally broke. With his voice barely above a whisper, he confessed. "Yes," he said, "I did it. I was jealous. I thought if I destroyed her work, she would stop dreaming. I didn't know she'd survive." Gasps filled the room. Zanira, his mother, broke down crying. She shouted that she didn't know, that she had only wanted to protect her son. But her tears came too late. The crowd looked at her with disgust. Her years of fake kindness had melted under the heat of truth. Barumo, Inzari's father, said nothing. His head was low, hands clenched. Guilt had found him, and it weighed more than any words ever could. He hadn't believed his daughter. He had let her suffer while praising the very boy who burned her dreams. The judge gave the sentence. Dako would serve 15 years in prison for arson and attempted murder. The courtroom was silent as the guards led him away in chains. Zanira collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Barumo sat frozen, staring at the floor. And Inzari, she stood, calm, strong. She walked out of the courtroom, past the villagers, past the ones who once whispered behind her back. Now, they moved aside, heads bowed. No one dared speak. Her car door opened. She stepped in, the light catching the fire-colored fabric of her dress. As the engine started, she looked once at the village through the window, not with anger, but with power. She had come back not for revenge, but for justice, and she had won. The fire that once tried to break her had only made her brighter. The girl they tried to silence now had a voice the whole world could hear. Inzari's life had changed forever, but she hadn't forgotten where she came from. The Lamira Fashion Council's award for Designer of the Year wasn't just a trophy. It was a testament to her resilience, her fire that no one could put out. The room erupted in applause as Inzari stepped onto the stage to accept the award. Her dress, an elegant fusion of gold and crimson, sparkled under the spotlight, echoing the vibrant spirit that had guided her through the darkest days. In that moment, the girl from Tobane, the girl who had once been burned and broken, stood before them as a force to be reckoned with. But Inzari wasn't just about recognition. She had bigger dreams. With the award in hand, she launched her own fashion label, Inzari, Born of Fire. The name was more than just a brand. It was her story. It was a symbol of rising from the ashes, of overcoming the unimaginable. Her first collection was breathtaking, a blend of modern designs and bold patterns that told the story of strength, pain, and hope. But what truly set her apart was the mission behind the brand. Inzari made it her goal to help girls from rural villages, girls who had faced the same hardships she once had. She hired them, trained them, and gave them the chance to pursue a career in fashion. Scholarships were offered to those who had the talent but lacked the means. Inzari's workshops became a safe space for girls who had suffered abuse or poverty, a place where they could rediscover their worth and potential. In her own way, she was building a future for them, one where they could rise higher, just as she had. The success of her brand was more than just financial. It was a movement, a revolution. Every piece of clothing Inzari created carried the essence of struggle and triumph, and it resonated with women everywhere. Her label became a beacon for those who believed in second chances, for those who had been knocked down but refused to stay down. Inzari never went back to Taban, the village that had once whispered about her failure, the village that had watched her burn, no longer held any part of her. But her legacy reached them in ways they never expected. At the entrance of Taban, a massive billboard stood tall, and there, in bold letters, was her message. Fire may burn, but I rise higher. Inzari. It was a reminder that no matter how hard life may hit you, how deep the scars may be, you can rise. Inzari had been broken, but she had rebuilt herself from the ashes. She had turned her pain into power and had created a future for others to follow. Her triumph was not just hers, it was a victory for every girl who had ever been told they were not enough, for every woman who had been silenced. Inzari was proof that even in the face of fire, you can rise higher. Dako thought he could end Inzari's dreams with a spark, a flash of fire that would take everything from her. He believed that by burning her designs, he could snuff out her future. But what he didn't understand was that fire doesn't always destroy. Sometimes fire forges strength. It hones you, sharpens your spirit. Inzari's soul, tested by the flames, came out stronger than ever. The fire that was meant to break her only made her rise. It was as if her very existence had been reshaped in the heat of those flames, emerging more powerful, more determined and unbreakable. What burns you, what tries to tear you down, doesn't always win. Inzari's fire wasn't just the physical burn of the night she lost everything. It was the fire of her will, her drive to move forward, no matter the odds. It was the fire in her heart that told her to never stop dreaming, even when the world tried to silence her. And so, she rose, not just from the ashes of her room, but from the doubts, the pain, the betrayals. Each step she took was fueled by the fire that burned within her. And no matter how many people tried to stand in her way, no matter how many times they tried to break her spirit, her destiny was louder. Destiny has a way of speaking to us, guiding us toward what we're meant to become. It has a force so powerful that nothing, not even flames, can drown it out. Inzari was meant to be a designer. She was meant to rise. The fire couldn't stop her. It only led her to her true calling. In the end, Inzari's journey wasn't just about success or revenge. It was about finding herself. It was about understanding that no matter how many times life tried to burn her down, she could always rise higher. Her fire wasn't something that would break her. It was something that made her stronger, more resilient, more unstoppable than ever. Dako thought he could destroy her future, but he didn't realize that fire can't burn destiny. It can shape it, mold it into something even greater. Inzari's story is a testament to the fact that no matter how much life tries to break you, no matter how much pain you endure, if you hold on to your destiny, nothing can stop you. Fire may burn, but it can never burn away the future that is meant for you. And no matter what happens, destiny will always find a way to shout louder than any attempt to silence you. Inzari's destiny was louder, and it carried her far beyond the flames that once tried to destroy her. Inzari's journey reminds us that no matter how dark the path may seem, how intense the flames, we all have the power to rise. She turned the fire meant to break her into the strength that propelled her to greatness. Her story isn't just about survival, it's about triumph, resilience, and the unshakable belief that our destiny cannot be burned away. No matter how many times life tries to put us down, we can always get back up, stronger, bolder, and more determined. If you've ever felt like the world was trying to break you, remember Inzari's story. Let it inspire you to keep moving forward, to never stop fighting for what you believe in, and to always rise from the ashes. If Inzari's journey touched your heart, don't forget to like and share this video. You never know who might need this reminder today. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories like this. Stories that uplift, inspire, and ignite the fire within. Thank you for watching, and remember, fire can burn, but it can never destroy your destiny. Keep rising, keep fighting, and never let anything dim your light. Your story is still being written, and the best is yet to come.